Numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
This here is a true story about crossing the pond at night in the world's smallest cockpit on the tanker through the weather. Oh, and to the tanker crew who did that. Wow, we really appreciated that. I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. So there I was crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fun.
So there I was behind the boat at night, 1 mile. Asked me to call the ball, and I saw nothing. I kept going, and LSO came on and said, recommend hover stop. I went to the hover stop, and I never decelled to a hover in the goo before, and now I know why.
Hopefully you never did it again. Oh, dear God. That's how all great aviation tales begin. Greetings, everybody. Repeat here, coming to you from Indianapolis, and I'm here with my co-host. Where are you today, Fig?
Fig's in, hello. Fig is in third person. I'm in Kearney, Missouri, Kansas City, Missouri, and that's terrifying story was from our guest, SeaBass. Welcome, SeaBass.
SeaBass, indeed.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
So don't let us forget, we want to get into that call sign. Sure, that's entertaining, but let's go back to the beginning. How did you get interested in aviation? What happened? And why didn't anyone talk you out of it?
I don't think anybody could have. I was interested in flying since I was a little kid.
Okay.
I grew up in Texas, and I remember my mom's cousin drove a truck through town, and in the back he had a Learjet, like a sales setup, where it was a cockpit demo, and he didn't really know how to work it, but he let me get in there and mess around. And I was probably about 5 years old, and it was really cool. I got to play in the cockpit, and I was like, I want to do this for a living someday. But it wasn't until later I started, watched a movie. Actually, I'm of the generation of Top Gun, and I certainly saw that a bunch. But really, it was more of The Right Stuff. I wanted to be Chuck Yeager.
Okay.
I wanted to be
All
like
right.
that. Yeah. And so I thought that was cool. So I put in for Navy, Air Force, ROTC scholarships and academies, and didn't even know the Marine Corps really flew anything. Got a call from the recruiter, and he said he wanted to know if I'd come down, the Marine recruiter, but if I'd come talk about a Marine Corps scholarship, and I could get me out of school for the day, or for at least a couple hours.
Right on.
All right. All right, cool. So I did. I went down there, and he asked me, the first thing he asked me, he says, okay, so tell me, why do you want to be a Marine more than anything in the world? And I was kind of taken it. I'm not sure who you think I'm here for. I mean, I don't know anything about the Marine Corps. If you could maybe tell me some stuff, maybe he's like, well, I want you to look me in the eye, and I want you to tell me why you want to be a Marine more than anything in the world. And I said, sir, I just got here. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. Only an idiot would say you wanted to join something more than anything in the world if he didn't know anything about it.
Right.
And he said, well, I guess you don't want to be a Marine very bad. I said, well, I guess I don't. And I left. The whole thing took about 5 minutes.
Some of our salesmen, you got to wonder.
Well, this is in Texas where, they don't have to try hard to get people to enlist or go to OCS. But it's a seller's market up there. So I went to A&M, and I was in the Corps, and most of my upperclassmen were kind of like that staff sergeant. We're not real ambassadors of the Marine Corps. Not all of them. Some were really great guys, but all the Navy guys are pretty squared away. So I wanted to be like them. I took my military training a lot more seriously than I did my academic training. And at the end of 2 years, I was not, my grades were okay, but I saw, my best friend and I saw a ad in the paper that said, do you want to be a pilot? Do you have 2.0 20/20 vision, or at least 19 years old? Come on down to the Navy recruiter and talk to us about the NavCad program. So I said, all right. So we went down and talked to him, and he said, well, this is in April of '89. And he said, what would you say if I told you could start flight school in the fall of this year? All right, yeah, that sounds good. What do I got to do? So I took all the tests and came back to me. All right, you're going to go to AOCS here this summer. All you got to do is quit school, and you're good to go. So all right. So I had a short and uncomfortable conversation with my father about leaving school, and I did. I went off to AOCS class 2089, and went through. I was 19 years old. I turned 20 the week before I graduated. So I went off to VT 27 in Corpus Christi for T-34 as at 20 years old, and got helicopters. Went through that program. I was about halfway through helicopters when they had the big force reduction of 90. And you've probably heard of that, the big RIF.
Okay, yep.
Yeah.
Do you remember that, Fig? They took guys who were finished practically. They had like one thing left to do.
Yeah.
Took the bottom two guys out. Guys out of every class and said, "Don't let the door hit you in the backside on the way out." Thanks very much for your time.
Right.
Well, it wasn't quite. It wasn't the bottom two guys. It was it was kind of a random selection how they worked.
Even better, even more fair.
We all got a meeting with the stand officer, and he told us where we were in the batting order from 1 to 100 or whatever. I was just right about the midway mark, and they said they were going to cut the bottom third, so I felt pretty safe that I wound up getting cut anyway. So I was upset. I was really mad at the Navy. A feeling that hasn't dissipated a whole lot in the past 30 years.
Hey, SeaBass, had you gotten winged, or was it while you were in the HTs?
I was in the HTs. I was just finished the solo.
Okay.
So
okay.
And I'll be honest, I didn't really want to be a Navy helicopter pilot at the time. No offense to those people that are undoubtedly listening, but there just wasn't a lot of cool stuff to do. If I was going to fly a helicopter, which is fun, I wanted to do it in the Marine Corps. And my on-wing was a Marine. My drill instructor obviously is a Marine. I really adjusted my view of the Marine Corps actually when I was in the Navy.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So I took the opportunity when I got out to go and now I want to be a Marine. Now what do I got to do? Now I really do want to be a Marine more than anything. And I went to the OSO here in Dallas and told him I wanted to be a Marine. And he said, well, what was your grades in college? I told him 2 point something. He's like, oh, well, I'm sorry. You're not even remotely close.
Dope.
It's never going to happen. You should just, you should move on to something else. I said, well, I've already been to AOCS. I've already been to flight school. I'm telling you, I can do this program. And he's like, well, that's maybe true. And that's great. But, we've got 5 guys in front of you that got, 2 9 3 O's and you've got nothing. So I got nothing for you. Wow. So I asked him if I could just get the paperwork and I'll do the application and see what, happened from there. And he said, I'll get it all back to you. I said, all right, well, knock yourself out. Good luck. And I got all the paperwork done. I had a letter from my CO from the HTs and my drill instructor and some guys like that. And I had it all back within 2 weeks from beginning to end. And the OSO is a pretty good guy. And he's just like, well, that's great. But I've got all my spots filled for next year. If I had an open one, I wouldn't give it to you. And, I think you should really move on with your life. I said, all right, well, I'll just keep checking in with you and we'll see what happens. And so I called him every Friday for 5 months, even after he told me to basically stop. And then the Gulf War was going on, and one of the guys that was over there, he was a reservist. He was supposed to go to juniors that summer. Wasn't going to be back in time to go to juniors, and so a spot opened up late, and I guess he said, "Hey, just give it to that idiot that keeps calling. At least
leave me alone.
He's going to show up." Yeah,
right.
So
if I give it to him, he'll quit calling me.
Exactly. So I wound up going to the combined course the following summer because there was some paperwork issues. But so I went and did that. When I graduated, went to TBS, and then I went back to flight school. So did it all over again.
Well, the second time around had to be a little funner. primary? And everything?
It was
Yeah.
different. I mean, the problem is that some of the instructors were guys I knew from when I was in the Navy, and everybody kind of knew who I was. It was a little bit in a fishbowl of, oh, this is the guy that's already done it. So there was some unrealistic expectations, and then there was,
Sure.
I thought my biggest advantage is that I already knew not so much the information, but what to study and where to find it pretty quickly. And the process of being, just one flight at a time and not trying to study too far in advance. And so I did pretty well. Primary, second time. Went to.
They made you go all the way back through primary. I think that's kind of funny.
Well, they called me in and they said they pulled my record from when I was in the first time and said everything's everything's good. You had good grades. We're going to put you on what's called the accelerated program. So if somebody shows up from Embry-Riddle with a commercial instrument ticket, they qualify for this program. So they said they were going to put me on that. And what they ended up doing is flying me about once every 2 weeks because they knew I wasn't going to need a refresh, warm up flight.
Yeah, not on a fast track at all.
No, but it worked out well. So I made it. Went to Meridian. T2s and A4s, and then off to 203.
When was that?
Nice.
So when did you hit Meridian? What year was that, SeaBass?
Meridian is, the summer of 95, so August 95.
Okay.
I got winged in October 96.
Okay.
Nice. Okay. Boy, tell you what, that's a beautiful thing to hear. That persistence.
I know, right?
That is a lesson for so many people in this world. How many times do you hear people getting told no and then go away? I'm sure I've done it myself.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, they said no.
Never gonna happen.
Don't take no
Okay.
for an answer.
Yeah.
Keep bothering them if it's something you want to do. That is a great life lesson right there. Oh, that's outstanding.
So was repeat at 203 when you went to?
No,
I was gone. I
years.
left in April of '95.
Okay.
So yeah, I was gone by then.
All right.
I was there when Snake was a CO. When I was a student, Snake was a CO.
All right.
And the instructors were, Blotto, Cutter.
Cutter.
Yeah. And of course, you ran across Greyhound once or twice too, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, Greyhound.
Yeah. We are still trying to get him on the show. The
He's very
raconteur
slippery.
extraordinaire of the Marine Corps.
He is very slippery. That guy.
He is
The person
indeed.
that ever told a story that was, I thought, actually kind of offensive to me in terms of just it was hilarious. It was one of the funniest stories I ever heard. But it's just he made me blush. I couldn't believe it. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has that
That's
way.
Hound.
That's Hound.
That's Hound.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Oh,
So
yeah.
was
He
Fitz
was
was
our
there.
squadron XO at one point, and he had some
he's the XO when I checked in. He was the XO.
Yeah, and he had some great stories. And if you walked into the ready room and to get a cup of coffee, and he was there telling stories, you were done for the rest of the morning or the rest of the afternoon.
Yeah.
It just
Hilarious.
the stories would go on, and they were awesome. They were always great. But one thing you couldn't get him to do was show up to club for happy hour.
No.
So at one point, we charged him at Kangaroo Court, and I believe convicted him of the most hair on fire stories and the least hair on fire activity in the Marine Corps.
That's true. I guess I never did see him. He was a sim instructor, him and Fitz and some of the other guys that were there.
Yeah.
But I never seen him at the Shane. But, the Shane was that was back when the Shane was in its prime.
Still going, yeah.
Dirty shame.
And it's a shame it's gone. So that was the Friday Night Out Club at Cherry Point was the dirty shame. So
Or any of the nights.
short
it wasn't
walk.
bad.
Yeah.
I lived
short walk.
in the apartments right behind it. So, it was
Yep.
Oh, perfect.
50 meters.
Yeah. Short walk. Drinking and walking was not a convictable offense, so that's a good thing. So
Your first gun
that's cool.
squadron was VMA 223? Oh, 211. Okay.
Yeah, I was a West Coast guy.
All right. So
Very cool.
hit the rag, hit 211, and
well, I want to know how soon you got SeaBass.
yeah.
Was that right away or?
Fairly short. It's one of those call signs that that the more of the meanings came after I got it than before I got it.
Okay.
They really were just dying to call somebody SeaBass. It's from the movie Dumb and Dumber, the big angry redneck.
Yeah, kicks ass, SeaBass.
Yeah, exactly. I was, I am a fairly decent sized person. And I am somewhat of a redneck, depending on who you ask. And I was in the ready room, and I was supposed to go fight the skipper, Gremlin, 1v1. And as I was walking out, somebody yelled, kick his ass, SeaBass, and everyone started laughing. And I came back, and all that stuff was all over my locker. And
well, there it is. There it is.
Then they adapted it later to big mouth, little brain, and other stuff like that.
Of course, and you got to try to live up to it.
Well,
well, the worst thing you can do is try to avoid it. It's never,
right.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't.
It's like a fish hook. Just digs in harder.
Yeah, it's like blood in the water, man. As soon as they smell the blood in the water, it's it. That's all you're gonna hear. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Could have been a lot worse, man. I mean,
it
really.
could be.
Yeah.
So, how long was it? How long were you in the gun squadron before you wound up getting out on your first deployment? And did you do the boat? Did you do Westpac?
Well, I was in it for 2 years, and I just finished section lead WTO build up, weapons training officer, and I was home on leave, and I got my wife was kind of friends with the skipper's wife, and they were talking on the phone, and then she's like, "Hey, the skipper wants to talk to you." I was like, "Oh, well, this isn't good." Hey, sir, what's up? He's like, say, "Hey, SeaBass, I need you to come back, as soon as you can from leave. We're going to deploy you, immediately with the 15th MEU." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, what squadron is that?" And he's like, "Well, it's not really so much a squadron. You're going to be the assistant air officer for the 15th MEU." And it's kind of a long story because it went out without Harriers. They want a Harrier guy on board, so they're sending you on as an additional assistant air officer.
Had you already been trained?
That's helpful.
Had you already been to
Absolutely not, nor did I. So, at that point. So it was what they call today an IA. I was an IA before that was actually a thing, an individual augmentee. Yeah. They just, it was, I think it's come up on the flight on this before about Longshanks. It was his brilliant idea. And you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, Lawman was talking about him.
Yeah, he was a lovely individual, and much beloved by everybody that didn't know him. And he basically, it was his idea. Yeah, and himself. It was, we want a jet guy to go on this MEU, so you're going. And I'm like, all right. So I literally showed up. It was, we really need you. It's really important. I show up the day, we floated, and they're like, who the hell are you? And, what are you supposed to do? And I'm like, so I just did various administrative things. Throughout the deployment.
I'm here for my cruise.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So was it?
Where's Julie, the cruise director? I'm here for my cruise.
Was it a 6-month thing, SeaBass? 6-month float?
Yeah. So it was back when it was guaranteed like 6 months in and out. We went to the Middle East and saw a bunch of stuff. And, it's one of the funny things. It's like the stuff, it was before 9/11, obviously. This is in 2000. I just did a lot of ops stuff mainly, and I was in Qatar. I was in Qatar, and I lived in a warehouse. And every day I had to go to the base and drop off the flight plans for where the helicopters are going to be flying that day, and just explain stuff and pick up, whoever passengers were coming in, and just basically ops crap. And I would drive around Qatar by myself, no cell phone, no weapon. No, I can't speak the language. I can't read the signs. I just knew where to turn. It just, go to this roundabout and make a right and wait for the big building and then turn right again and then look for the front gate. And,
what could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, think about that.
I got detained by the Qatari Air Force because there was a misunderstanding about some ID cards that the PMC, the recon guys were coming ashore, and they got off the helicopters, and one of them didn't have their ID card. And so they were trying to send it back, but now it was nighttime. We can't send people at night. So I spoke up for them, and I ended up spending about 4 hours talking to the CEO of the base about my transgressions. And, I just went SEER school on them, and yes, sir, you're right. Whatever. What do I got to sign so I can get the hell out of here? And we got it all done.
Right.
Went SEER school on them.
Nice. Name, rank, and serial number. Yep.
I like that. I'm writing it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 3 bags full. That's awesome. Yeah. Oh man. So, but you did it 6 months. Got back to flying.
Yeah. Yep, came back to 211. It was a QAO, the quality assurance officer.
Yeah.
And then I deployed. I was supposed to. We went to Japan, but it was working up through 9/11. I was like I said, I was a QAO, so I did most of the functional check flights, and I was supposed to fly a flight that morning. Showed up to work, and Fish was the AMO, and he was telling everybody, "Hey, when no one's flying, everything's grounded." I'm like, "Oh God, we're getting a red strike. What happened?" It's like, no, a plane hit the World Trade Center. It's like, and I didn't understand what that meant, and
Right.
so that week it's funny because we worked really, really hard, probably it seems like 16, 18 hours a day, and I really, to this day, I can't tell you what we did all day. We were getting all the jets ready because we thought we were gonna deploy immediately because we were the next to deploy anyhow.
Okay.
Our squadron was supporting two MEUs, the 31st and the 13th at the same time. And so the 13th MEU left a little early, and then the 31st MEU left in January, and I was on that half.
Send
Japan.
six airplanes, 8 airplanes. How many did you send on each MEU?
It was 6 on the 13th MEU, and then the 31st it was supposed to be 10, then it was supposed to be 8, and we wound up going with 6. And then we didn't even bring our planes. We flew over in the tube, and then took over the 6 busted up hoopties that were left over there for us from the squadron next door, of which one of them was capable of attaining flight.
Wow.
And took us a while to get them up and running, but once we did, we flew for the rest of the 6 months.
Thanks.
And came home.
Thanks, fellas. Right. Thanks for the
for
the Huss.
So, hey, couple quick terms you bounced off us there. QAO, quality assurance officer, part of maintenance, AMO, aviation maintenance officer, aircraft maintenance officer. So those are jobs in the squadron. Basically, overseeing the troopers that keep the airplanes running for us, keep us in one piece out there. So,
best jobs in the squadron, working in maintenance.
Yeah.
Yep.
With that.
Yep. Absolutely. Good stuff. Mostly, I think I got to agree with that because in the ability to work with the Marines, the young Marines that are maintaining the airplanes and all that. Not a lot of, by head count, not a lot of Marines in the other part of the squadron.
No, you'll definitely get some good leadership experience, both good and other. A lot of pain, but there's a lot of Marines that I still see today or talk to that are, that it's great just to know that that they remember me from being back in those days.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So all right, hit him, Fig.
Well, so you deployed with the 13th MEU? Is that what you said? Or
31st.
31st. All right. And
little dyslexia there on Fig's part.
Well, I wrote both down, and I couldn't remember which one SeaBass went on. So where did the 31st MEU go? To the Med. Right?
We started off in Iwakuni. We were there for a month or so, and then we went to Okinawa. Got on the boat a couple times, on and off the boat multiple times. The Essex was the boat at the time, and then we went to Korea, Singapore. We went off the coast of Iwo Jima, and we weren't allowed to go to shore, but the Navy did a flyby for it, so that was awesome.
I'm sorry. Can I interrupt? Can I ask you to stop tapping the desk? That the mic is picking that up. Yeah, that's okay. So is that on and off the boat? That must have just been a logistical nightmare, keeping everybody current and qualified and
yes.
Getting their landings
They have a auxiliary field at Ishima now. So there were three Harrier FCLP facilities, field carrier landing practice facilities. One at Bogue Field, one at Yuma at Aux 2, and one at Ishima. And so we would go out there and get field current again. I was an LSO, so we did that over and over again. So it was just back and forth to the boat, back and forth to the boat. So it was a lot of pain. The 31st MEU is painful, but at least it was long.
Yeah, at least it was long, right?
Yeah.
Right. Well, so when you came back from that deployment, let's go back. When you came back from the tour with the 15th Mew.
Right.
Did that reset your clock in the squadron? So you...
Yes, kind of. It's funny because I had a meeting with the monitor, and because this is at the time when the big boogie thing was, you're going to get a deploying factor. If you screw up, you're going to get a deploying factor. That's what everybody was. That was the big threat for company grade officers at the time.
Yeah.
Now it turns out everybody I know that did one loved it, and that somewhat includes me later on in life. But so I went to my monitor and said, "Hey, look, as far as I'm concerned, I did my deploying factor. I deployed. I was in a fact billet, and I'm back." And he said, "Yep, I agree. That makes sense to me. When you were off the list for any kind of orders for the next 2 years." And so I did 2 years when I came back from that. So I ended up with my first tour. You can either say it was two 2-year tours or 1 4-year tour.
Okay.
It's really more 1 4-year tour.
Nice. So the clock fig is talking about you get so much time in a gun squadron, and then they send you to a ground tour of one form or another. And
exactly.
I guess it makes us well-rounded Marines.
Yeah. And actually, I did several ground tours over my career, and a lot of them were all interesting in their own ways, and some were more enjoyable than others.
Right. Yeah.
Did you do 20? Did you do 20 years?
I did 21. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you for your service.
Indeed. Yeah.
So what happened after VMA 211? Actually, what kind of
flying did you?
Yeah,
we got notes about loss of engine control, and I want to circle back to your 00 boat landing too.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The loss of engine control was first. That was on night systems, low level. Me and Smash was my flight lead, great American, and we were in the Yuma airspace, north of Yuma, the 0608 air complex, and we're I think the floor that's 1,000 feet. So I think we're at 1,000 feet, on an ingress at night wearing goggles, and I kept getting a nuisance caution where it would just every now and then it would say caution, caution. I looked down, nothing.
Yeah.
So all right, well, I don't know what the hell that is, and then kept flying, and then I finally heard, caution, caution, and the engine just went, roar. I was like, oh, well, that's different. I looked down, and it was EFC caution. EFC is electronic fuel control.
Right.
There are two components on the electronic fuel control, two digital electronic control units, and they're both identical. When you get the caution, it means one of them is quit. So it's just no big deal. You just don't change the switch, and then you just go home and land. So I told Smash I terminate. Let's start climbing up, and we'll talk about it. And I told him that I had an EFC caution, and he said, "All right, well, let's start. Some join on me." And then that's when the plane caution. So I lost the other ESC. So now the throttle moves back and forth, freely.
Oh,
it
shit.
didn't do anything. It's no longer really connected to the engine. It's physically connected, but it's not working. Well, the procedure for that is, throttle to idle, manual fuel, the switch on. So I went to so I came on the radio and said, "All right, Smash, I'm going to go to manual fuel." And I said, "Wait a minute. What are you going to manual fuel for? It's only a caution." I said, "No, I just lost the other one. It's a warning now." I said, "I'm going to go to manual fuel." I went idle, reached down, hit the manual fuel switch. Then nothing happened. And I was like, all right, well, I must have hit it wrong. Hit it again, nothing. There was a plane that had crashed a few years earlier that a guy had tried to go put his dumps on, but instead he went to manual fuel and torched his engine. So I thought, well, maybe I was doing the opposite of that. So I looked down and I saw the switch, and I put it, held it in position, held it, 5 times, nothing.
Yeah.
It's not.
No.
Stuck.
Push it like you mean it into position. Come on.
So if I remember right, hey, one of those switches was a T over center, and the other one was not.
There was 3. They used to all 3 be the little mushroom kind of switches.
Yeah.
And then they changed the manual fuel to the T switch as a result of that mishap that had happened a couple years before that to keep you from making that mistake.
Okay.
Well, so I'm holding it. It's not working. There's a manual fuel battery by the throttle that you can fire, and it sends an electrical impulse down and switch it for you. So I hit that. It didn't do anything either. So now the engine was at about 88% when it started, and I can't change it. So I just put the nose towards Yuma, started climbing up to do a variable nozzle slow landing, which I thought was going to be pretty easy, and it would have been, save for a couple things. So as I climb up, as I'm getting higher altitude, basically the fuel in there is stuck. So it's only going to get so much. And so the RPM is slowly rolling back. And every time I move the nozzle lever, it puts a drag on the system, because it's run by bleed air, this thing called the SAMSU motor. It's run by bleed air. And I don't remember what SAMSU stands for, but I could figure it out. So every time I move the nozzle lever, I'm losing a couple RPM.
Shit.
So now I'm coming down. I got all set up for a straight into runway 21 right in Yuma. They used to have the arresting gear rigged on both runways, which I fixed later on in life. But tonight it wasn't. So I had to land on the long runway between the gears. They got the approaching gear de-rigged finally. So I lowered the gear. I was in auto flaps, and I had the nozzles at about 50 or 60. And I was on speed, and now I'm short of the runway. And my velocity vector is about 3 degrees short of the runway.
Oh, no.
And it was, it was just one of those things where I'm like, well, okay, now what? So I would just nozzle out, which means push the nozzles further aft to get some speed so I could get some more altitude. But every time I moved the nozzle lever, the RPM came back down again.
And it would come down and not return, right? I mean, every time you're just losing more power and more power every time you move it.
Losing, exactly. And something I've tried to teach people later on, when it comes to variable nozzle landings, is that you can piss away energy in this thing really, really quickly, but you're never going to get it back. Yeah. And it's always rather to be fast and slow. So I was on speed. I'm like, well, I can get a little slow, and then I can trade that for some altitude. By the time it was all over, as I was about 3 miles, I'm like, if I can't make the runway, I'm going to have to make a decision. Either if I can land at least close to the runway, I'll just do that. If I can't make it across 32nd Street, which is the big street going into Yuma, then I'm going to point it towards the fairgrounds, which is a big black area, and then eject. But once I've committed myself to cross, I don't want to hit 32nd Street. It's one thing I didn't want to do. So there's all sorts of cars and stuff. So I kept going. I decided I could make it past 32nd Street. I got my AOA up to around 14 or 15 units. I mean, I was really I had high AOA, but I was still going like 130 knots because it was the nozzles by this point are probably about 30 degrees because I didn't realize that putting them forward was making it slow.
So AOA is all for angle of attack.
Right.
Keep going.
So so I ended up touching down about 10 feet down the runway, across 32nd Street about 50 feet.
10 feet. Huh.
Yeah.
Why'd you land so long?
Yeah, exactly. Well, now I have 13,000 feet of runway to stop, which was fine. So, but now the engine's still at by that time it probably got down to about 70%. So I shut the throttle. I pulled the low pressure cock, the T handle, the fuel control shut off.
Yeah, fuel shut off.
Because I wasn't sure that anything was working in the throttle quadrant, and so I shut. Now I'm going down the runway, probably at 120 knots, with no engine and just the accumulator for brakes and nose wheel steering. And so I didn't want to take because as soon as I shut the engine off, I didn't have oxygen anymore, but I didn't want to take my mask off because I wasn't sure I wasn't still going to have to punch out. So I reached down for the green apple, which was the oxygen, little pull tab.
And this is all at night. You got a lot of shit going on here, SeaBass.
Right. Yeah, I did. It was at night. And I was like, okay, this is the green apple, not the ejection handle. Yes. Okay. I'm positive. And then I pulled it. And I'm like, okay, I'm still here.
You didn't eject. Okay. You got that one right.
Yeah.
You guessed right.
Got it stopped and got out of the jet to a huge reception of fire trucks and Marines that were about to spray me with, there wasn't any fire. It's fine. And that was it. So, it turns out it was a cannon plug on the NF pulse probe. There was actually two separate problems. The NF pulse probe, which is it senses the RPM of the fan, the main N1.
Okay.
and it had come off somehow. It was supposed to be, it was a safety cannon plug. It was supposed to be twisted 18 times. It was only twisted once, and it came off.
Oh boy.
Meanwhile, the electrical line from the manual fuel switch to the solenoid was cracked, and it was when it was on the ground, it worked fine, but in the air there was too much vibration and it wouldn't work. So there was no backup. It was a very strange situation that luckily was able to work out.
Well, nice job. Holy shit. Nice job
like
getting the plane back for crying out loud. That was not not for the meek.
Because when Snake was the group CEO at that point, he said to say, "Hey, SeaBass, good job of bringing my plane back." I'm like, "Sir, your plane was attached to my ass," and that's what I brought back.
Yeah, that's right. That's
right.
A very good
It's
point.
Ow, my ass!
Nothing heroic about it. It was strictly self-survival.
Yeah.
Right. There you go. And then you decided to bring one into the boat at night at 0-0. What were you thinking?
I wasn't.
You didn't have enough fun the first go around?
No, that was actually later. I was in 223. I had gone out when I came back from the 31st MEU. I was got orders to the RAG, be a RAG instructor, and as soon as we showed up, so this was the summer of 2002. Summer of 2002, I showed up, and Smurf was the CO, and he's like, "Hey, just so y'all know, all you guys that just got here, that just came off deployments, any of y'all ever flown with a lightning pod?" Yes, sir, I have. And they were looking for lightning pod guys, LSOs, and FCF pilots, and I was all of those things, and so were a lot of other guys. It's the RAG. Everyone there has done a bunch of stuff. And they said, "Hey, this Iraq thing might kick off, and if it does, the squadrons down the street are going to need some help, and they're going to, you all might get pulled out of here, and none of y'all might get pulled out of it. But, just to let you know, don't get too comfortable. You may end up, down the street." Well, that happened to me. I got, I got noticed about 2 weeks to, "Hey, pack your stuff. You're going to 223.
Okay.
So I got, before I got to 223, actually had called me and said they needed me to do an FCF for them. Because I was, they would call the RAG and say, "Hey, can you get anybody who can do an FCF?" And I went down to do it. And I had my my 211 coin behind my my patch I always carried with me, and so I flew a jet. I had not even checked in yet. I'm still a 2 or 3 instructor, but I did the FCF, came back, everything was fine. Went the next day to go to the admin area to get my orders and paperwork, and the kid that was working there was like, "Hey, sir, you got any good luck charms you carry with you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I just my naked lady pin, and I have my my little squadron coin." And I pulled my patch off, and the coin was not there. And I was like, "Oh man, did I change flight suits last night?" And they're like, there's no way, I lost that coin." And I have to be. And I was like, "What was the last time I saw?" I'm like, "Oh my God, I flew that plane yesterday." So I'm like. So I go over to meanwhile, I haven't even checked in yet. I go to maintenance control and I'm like, "Hey, I know this is nothing. It's probably not me, but I can't find my squadron coin. And I flew aircraft 7 yesterday. Have you guys seen it?" And they said, "Oh yeah, we have it. It was in the slaughter quadrant."
No.
And well, Woody's got it. The skipper's got it. I'm like, "Oh my God. All right. Great." So I went and put on my alphas and had to go check in, and Woody's there, and and it had to be me. I was the only one from 211 that had a
How do you like me so far, Skipper?
Yeah. Didn't make a great first impression, but I apologize, and he was cool about it. So anyway, so I go on we go on the East Coast carrier. We were on the Bataan, us in 542. It was a Southern Force sortie, so it was like after Southern Watch had ended, it went to Southern Force before it went to Iraqi Freedom. And so we hadn't started dropping bombs yet. We were patrolling the Southern no-fly zone. And Shine was was the lead, and then Trout was -2, I was -3, and Disaster was -4, but he went down in the chalk, so we went out as a threesome. We go out, did our sortie, and as we're coming back, it's nighttime. We're going to land what's called a case 1-8, which is case 1 of coming into the break, but at night with goggles on. And as we're coming in, they said, "Hey, how quickly can you guys get here? We're like, well, we'll get there pretty quick. So he's like, all right, well, signal Charlie, hurry up. So we turned our dumps on. We were carrying ordnance. So we had, I had a GBU 16, 1,000-pound bomb, a lightning pod. And I don't know if I had a Deccan pod or not, but I was pretty heavy. And so we started, to speed it up and start a descent. So we were dumping gas to get light enough to land. And then they came on center and said, 99 max and serve, 99 max and serve.
After you dumped your fuel.
After we had started dumping. Like, all right, so we turned the dumps off. I'm like, okay, well, now what? What's And they said, okay, we're going to go to case 3 aided. So it's basically an instrument approach on goggles. And it's, the visibility has gone to basically, we can't tell, but it's bad. So go ahead.
Shit.
So we sent dash 2 in first, trout. And, all right, I just doing a normal PAR, basically a CCA, a precision approach radar or a carrier controlled approach. So I was on the downwind, and I got paddles frequency up on the right, and I hear dash 2, who we sent down first, trout. He said, hey, everyone check, 99 landing lights on. So we turned our landing lights on. So that's bad. It means that the LSOs, even with goggles, can't see you unless you turn your lights on. So he turned, we hear screaming and wailing on paddles, and he ends up waving off.
Oh shit!
Because he just was way too fast, and he didn't see anything, obviously, and he waves off. And they asked him his state is how much fuel, and he said he had a 1.0. And I remember the first time I was like, that's it.
Well, he's got 8 or 10 minutes left then. Jeez.
He's screwed. I mean, it takes about 800 pounds to go around the case 3 pattern. And, he's screwed. All right. Well, that's not think about that right now. Let's think about, your approach. So I, listened to Shine. He went down next, and there was screaming and wailing. He got aboard. And then I was on final with I had about 1,000 pounds when I was on final. And they said, hey, we need you to do a right 360 to get dash 2 back in front of you. Because he's got next to nothing. So I raised the gear, did a 360. Now I'm about, 700 pounds as I start the approach, which isn't a lot. Typically we want to be on the ground with at least 800. And, on the boat, we were typically more like about a 1.2, 1.3.
Right.
So, I start shooting the approach. I hear the screaming and wailing, and trout gets aboard. And then, I get, flying the approach down there. He called on glide path, on course, 1 mile, call the ball. I look out, and I don't see anything at all. I said Clara, which means I don't see anything at all. And it was silence for, it seemed about 5 seconds. It was probably about a second. And Q, another great American, was on the CCA Freak, and he said, recommend hover stop. And I was, all right. So I'm like, what now? I'm going to go to hover stop. I mean, this is not this. We don't do this. This is not going to work. Okay. Hover stop. And they said, Roger, hover stop. You're lined up left, check right. And I look up into the right, and I could see a faint glow off to my right side. And as soon as I did that, my whole world started tumbling.
Oh, of course it did.
Because it was just the most disorienting feeling. I felt like I was rolling hard right. And so I'm putting left control inputs in it. And every time I did that, I started to descend. And so there was, screaming, power, 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 and then, okay, check right, check right, check right. And I came on the radio and said, I can see you. I just can't get there from here. I can't make the plane go right, because every time I feel like I'm rolling right.
Oh my gosh.
And I just kept doing it, just screaming. And, I kicked up so much water. There was, because what it was a sandstorm. It wasn't even weather. It was a sandstorm.
Okay.
And there was dirt everywhere. And I kicked up enough water. I went below the deck edge 3 times and kicked up enough water to make mud on the bottom of the jet.
Oh shit.
And yeah. And once I got literally a beam the spot, which is like 1 plane width to the left of the boat. As soon as I got about 1 plane length, everything just kind of popped out and I could see it. And I just, crossed, landed, and they shut me down. I could see there was a helicopter spinning in front of me. That was a Starbird.
Getting ready to come get you.
Yeah, that's what they said, man. I said, well, you're only going to find me. You were just going to join me, which I appreciate the solidarity, but it's not going to do any of us a lot of good. I was shaking. I had less than 100 pounds of ground gas on board.
Less than 100 pounds.
Less than 100 pounds. I tripped the limiters at some point. Remember any of that?
Wow.
That was March 12th, 2003. So still the scariest thing ever done in an airplane.
Well, that checks that box. The scariest thing in an airplane. Holy shit!
Absolutely unbelievable there. Holy cow! All right, hey, well, let's take a minute to thank our sponsor this week, Robbins Bird Brain Designs, and then we'll come back and finish out some of these amazing yet terrifying stories. Here at So There I Was, we're proud to welcome back as a sponsor, Robbins.
Get a drink.
Right. Here at So There I Was, we're proud to welcome back as a sponsor, Robbins Bird Brain Designs. Looking for a unique and thoughtful gift? Well, look no further. At robbinsbirdbraindesigns.com, they specialize in custom slate coasters that are sure to impress. Imagine having a set of coasters personalized with your squadron logo and call sign, or even your aircraft tail number and instruments. Whether it's for your aviation enthusiast friends or a special someone in your life, their custom coasters are the perfect way to show that you've put some thought into getting that something special for someone truly special. But it doesn't stop there. They can also create coasters with any organization logo and printing that you desire. From military units or sports teams, they've got you covered. Their high-quality coasters are made from durable slate, ensuring they'll stand the test of time. So why settle for ordinary gifts when you can give something extraordinary? Visit robbinsbirdbraindesigns.com today and let them help you create custom gifts that show just how much you care. Because when it comes to thoughtful presents, they've got your back. There you go. All right. Well, that is absolutely terrifying. Landing 0-0. Again, I'm thinking you're probably wondering why am I not selling Kenny shoes at the mall or something like that when you're going through that, or shortly thereafter anyway. But it looks like you had some fun out there too. We got a bullet point here that you had a run in with a gay chicken. Is that what?
Is it a gay chicken or a great? It's a gay chicken. Oh shit, it's a gay chicken.
Gray chicken, gay chicken. You know. Let's be politically correct here. That's important.
I mentioned that working in maintenance, you get some leadership opportunity with the Marines, which in some of them you remember in a positive way, and some of them not so much. It was on my next deployment on the 13th MEU. I was doing an FCF. We had a plane that was left on the ship that needed an engine change or some stuff, and it was me and a small jet of Marines that were going to fly it into Iraq. It was in 07 during the surge. And every Marine was off the boat. So I am suddenly the senior Marine on the whole boat. I was a major at the time. And I was, which isn't a whole lot. I mean, it sounds impressive if you're a PFC, but if you're, on the boat staff, it's nothing. And so the captain, who was insane, decided he wanted me to be, at the morning meetings. And I was now in charge of I was the senior Marine of the whole boat, which includes the combat cargo guys. And the combat cargo guys are people from all over the MEU that are sent over there, not for their excellence or their development of any sort. These are kind of the sick, lame, and lazy for the most part.
All right.
I don't know these guys, but I'm now in charge of them. So I get an email from the skipper, the ACO, the Air Combat Element Commanding Officer, and he says, "Hey, there's this guy that's in trouble. I need you to go check on him and find out what he did. He keeps emailing the commandant of the Marine Corps. I need you to make him stop doing that and find out whatever it is he's doing and make him stop doing that too."
That's outstanding. See, we were active duty pre-email when I can't imagine the leadership challenges that presented once Marines figured out they could just write to a 4-star.
Well, you'd be surprised. So what happens is, so I get a hold of this, I go to, first of all, there's an NCIS agent on the ship, and I went down and I asked him, I said, "Hey, what is this kid's problem?" And he said, "Well, have you ever heard of gay chicken?" I said, "No, I have not." And he said, "Well, you get two guys, straight preferably, and the idea is that they come at each other as if they're about to have sex, and the first person to back down loses. So that's gay chicken." And, I was like, okay, well, that sounds really dumb. It's like, so him and the sailor are playing gay chicken and birthing, and they wind up with one of them has his pants down, the other one reaches over and touches him on the ass. They immediately turn and point at each other and say, he's gay, he tried to rape me, it's a big mess, but nothing had happened. And like, all right, well, so I pull him up and I'm like, hey, all right, Corporal, what exactly is going on? I told him, so he said, it's not my fault. I'm like, okay, listen, I don't think this is that big a deal. Let me talk to the skipper. How about, answer, what's the deal with emailing the commandant? He's like, well, my gunny yelled at me. And I'm like, well, I get that. But, there's like 50 layers between you and the commandant. How about this? Don't email the commandant anymore. If you have a problem, you come to me and I will help you. So, okay, sir. All right. So the next day at the ship's meeting I'm now in the Mucios chair because I'm the senior Marine, which I did not want to do, but the ship's captain insisted. No. The chief of staff comes up and he's for the ARG and he's like, hey, SeaBass, do you know this kid? It's Corporal. I'm like, yes, sir. He's like, he keeps emailing the captain and he's a nice guy, but the captain's kind of had enough. Can you please tell him to stop? I'm like, absolutely, sure, no problem. So I find Corporal Gay Chicken and I'm like, hey man, okay, maybe I wasn't clear. And by the way, if you'd seen this kid, you'd know that he's got one eye that's about 10 degrees off bore sight. He's not all there.
Oh, no.
He is not particularly bright. And I said, maybe I wasn't clear. When I said don't email the commandant, here's what I really meant is don't email anybody senior to me. Okay, so if you have a problem, take everything directly to me. Do you understand? Oh, yes, sir, I get it. So I call the skipper, I email him, I told him, hey, sir, there's really nothing here. This he's an idiot. I told him not to do it again. But there's no sexual misconduct. This isn't, it shouldn't be a big deal. And he decided to NJP him anyway, which I thought was not, called for, but it's not my call. So I had to send him to Al Assad, which I wouldn't let him take his rifle because he didn't seem like he was completely worth it. With it, he was.
Yeah.
So
probably smart.
Yeah. So I, go ahead.
NJP. We know what that means. Can you?
I don't think we've covered that. Yeah.
Can you define that for us, please, for our listeners?
Article 15 of UCMJ, also known as, office hours in the Marine Corps, captain's mess in the Navy. It is an
UCMJ's Uniform Code of Military Justice.
Yeah.
Yes. And what happens is it's an administrative proceeding. You basically go there and get yelled at, and the worst they can do to you is take a stripe and half month's pay for 2 months and give you, extra duty or restriction. It's not a small deal, but it's not the end of the world either. It's, if for those of you in the airlines, it's like getting called into the chief pilot's office, for some time off. It's not good, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. Thank you.
So we sent him to that. I would end up spending the next 2 years with this kid because we were in the same next command together, which was just, that was a lot of fun. I was the XO later.
Now
on.
You've got a special friend.
Yeah. Oh, it was funny because, this is the same guy that, as I got to my next command and I'm the XO, he was surfing child pornography on the MWR computers.
No.
Morale, yeah.
No.
I'm telling you, if you knew this kid, he wasn't doing, I pulled in my office and I yelled at him, hey, listen, what are you doing? He says, I'm finding this pornography and I'm sending it to the FBI, which he was. He was copying the links onto a email and emailing it to FBI.gov or something and sending links of child pornography to the FBI. For future reference, not a good plan.
Yeah, not a good plan. He was thought he was doing something positive, I think, right?
He honestly, absolutely did. He's just not smart. There was something wrong with the kid.
He had one eye that was a little off bore sight. That's holy.
The boys' gig line weren't right. A few French fries short of a Happy Meal, huh?
Oh. He was a leadership challenge, as they say. But that's Gay Chicken.
Okay, thank you.
That's a scream. That is a scream. Well, we've got a bunch more, but I think in the interest of time, we've probably hit 3 or 4 more here,
sure.
and then I want to have you back. These are great stories.
Sure.
So we've got SeaBass to land, red car and white car, snappers crash. I don't.
Snappers crash at pad 4.
Yeah.
Well,
So that's Cherry Point.
No, pad 4 is Yuma. So my wife and I were going out to lunch. This is during the week. She came to pick me up, and I went out the gate, and I hear somebody starting to wave off from pad 4, and I see a giant explosion. And like, oh my God! I went, for some reason, I worked in maintenance. My office was right there, so I ran. I said, "Honey, I'll see you later. Wait here." And I go run in, and a plane had crashed at pad 4 with a friend of mine, Snapper, was in it. Great American. And he was fine. I see him, one of my Marines was going out with one of those big, like the fire bottles that you can like tow behind a tug, It's great for putting out a fire pit at your house. But
an APU fire or something.
Yeah. He's charging off, valiantly with that thing, and crash crew got there. He was fine. Then I went back because I didn't witness it, but I wanted to make sure everything was taken care of. I go back upstairs and I get to the ready room, and my wife is still outside. And one of the guys was supposed to fly, and he didn't feel like flying anymore. So it was with Smash again. And Smash is like, "Hey, you want to go do a 1v1? This other guy, Myrtle, can't go." I'm like, yeah, hang on a second. I go tell my wife. So I go run downstairs, and
You're on the flight schedule.
Yeah, I picked up a flight. I can't have lunch. Love you, bye, and took off. And I come back, and this is really more about Sammy than me, I guess. But I mean, we do the flight and come back, and he's like, "What did you have to go tell your wife about?" I'm like, "Oh, well, I was supposed to have lunch with her." He's like, "Did she see the crash?" I'm like, "Well, yeah." I mean, he's like, "So you told your wife witnesses a plane crash. You tell her goodbye and then go flying?" So the way you make it sound, it doesn't sound as nice as it was when I did it, but
mistakes were made.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly.
It doesn't sound as nice as it was when I did it. Yeah. Oh, SeaBass, that's priceless, buddy. That is priceless.
The red car and white car was a little more serious in terms of. This was a couple weeks into the during the invasion. I was flying with Dirty, East Coast Dirty. And he was my wingman, and we were flying north on the southeastern side. We were going up towards Baghdad, and I get a call from the Direct Air Support Center, the DASC, saying, "Hey, we've got." Actually, I think it was Tropical, whoever the Tactical Air Operations Center, and they said, "Hey, we've got this, advisory to copy a grid." So I copied the grid, launched, the location of this point of interest, and said, "We've got this red car followed by a white car. It's driving down a dirt road next to a railroad track in the vicinity of this location. If you see it, you're clear to engage." And I said, "Okay, well, first of all, I can't see red and white on the lightning pod. It's a green, shades of green kind of thing, gray."
Yeah. Was this nighttime? Nighttime SeaBass?
No, it was daytime.
Okay.
So I'm looking. I look all around that spot. And at the time, the lightning pod was not electrically. We hung it on the plane as if it was an infrared Maverick missile. It did not talk to the mission computer or the stores mission computer. It thought it was a Maverick. So when you were looking at stuff through it, you had to have an INS waypoint, inertial navigation system waypoint, to stare it at. And then once you dropped, you had to guide the bomb with the laser. It would not update the system.
Okay.
So I'm looking, I don't see anything. And finally, the guy on the controller says, "Well, that was probably about half an hour ago. So he's probably farther south of you of that position by now." Well, since we're going north and I'm pointing north, I'm like, well, if he's going south, he's probably right underneath us. And this is at 20,000 feet. I looked over the right, and you could look down pretty well. I see this railroad track, and I see a dirt road, and I see a red dot followed by a white dot hauling ass down this dirt road. and I'm like, and this is, no one was out driving. This is during active combat. This is before, President Bush stopped on the carrier and all that. This was, bombs were raining down. This is no time to be screwing around.
Yeah.
So I said, I have him in sight. I see him. I'm visual. And they said, "Roger, you're clear to engage." So I told my wingman, "Okay, I'm going to start a right-hand flow, welded attack, one by one, tail instantaneous, and just that's the play. So I'm going to roll in on a 45-degree dive, and then I'm going to drop my bomb on, visually on a CCIP, continually computed impact point.
Yeah.
I'm going to drop it on that, which is going to drop what's called a stab cue. It's going to drop a point now that I can point my lightning pod at, and now I can slew away from that and have my wingman drop visually, and I'll just guide his bombs in with my laser. So I roll in, I start popping out flares. I've never dropped on a moving target before. I don't know how much to lead it, so I lead it, not that much. And
Yeah.
I dropped, dropped a GBU-16. I dropped it dumb, which is a 1,000-pound laser guided bomb, but it just dropped just like a regular bomb. It hits about 300 feet in front of the lead car, and the lead car bursts into flames. The second one slams on his brakes, totally buddy fucks him, and turns around and just takes off leaving. Goes back to the north. So I told my wingman, hey, from my hits, north 300. And he's like, sir, they're telling us to stop. They're telling us to stop. So who's telling us to stop? Tropical is telling us. I think Tropical. I think this is, Mad Dog 1-1. What are you guys? He's like, do not drop on those cars.
Oops.
And it's quiet. I was like, oh my God. I'm like, well, I already did. The first one's on fire. What do you want me to do? And he says, okay, yeah, just don't do that. And, you can go back to the boat. I'm like, I'm going to prison.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't, I messed this. I know he said I was clear to engage, but it's not going to be on the tape because everything was encrypted. So I say, is there a problem? And they said, no, it's the battle captain's not happy with the ID. And, so just, it's exactly who we think it is, but don't worry about it. Just go back to the boat. So we go back to the boat and land. I went to the Intel Center and I gave him my tapes and I told him, hey, this is what I did. This is where I was. This is what happened. And I haven't heard anything since. So,
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's not comforting.
But the flight back to the boat, I'm telling you, it sucked because I was just like,
Oh, yeah.
It made me really think, hey, man, maybe I was a little bit too quick to shoot on that one. And, there's a difference between being legal and being right. Another week or so later, I was flying, same basic scenario. There was a tank it was sitting about maybe 300 or 400 meters from my house, pointed south, and I was plotting it on my system, was showing it inside a closed airspace, which means that I needed a FAC to drop on it. And
okay, forward air control.
It wasn't an open. We had open kill boxes and closed. An open kill box, you could drop on anything that was military. A closed kill box, you needed a clearance to do it. They had to be coordinated. Okay. And the DAS was telling me, no, we're plotting that in the open kill box. I'm like, well, I'm plotting in the closed kill box, and it's not shooting at anybody. I'm not even sure there's anybody in there. So I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not dropping on it, and I didn't. I reported where it was at, and it got logged to the next guy. But it made me think a little bit better before I engaged. Not a lot of you can't take them back once they're downrange.
That's right.
Yeah.
Can't
have that one back.
Take it back as soon as it leaves the. As soon as it leaves.
SeaBass to land is actually a little more humorous. That was my third pass of the boat as a hairy guy, and we had the LSO that was under training was.
This
Shifty.
is the third time ever.
My third landing ever on the boat. Yeah.
Okay.
My initial carry qual. So this was back in 2011. Years before. And Shifty was the LSO under training. Smash was the LSO, the training LSO, and I was a new guy, and I didn't really know what I was doing. There was a jet turning in front of me, and a lot of wind down the deck, and you get what's called the suck down, which means you get you're in the hover. If there's a lot of wind, it'll blow that stack of air out from under you, and you'll fall faster than I was used to. And I'd never seen it before, but I saw it that time. So I'm, falling like an egg from a tall chicken, and I wound up, with full power as I hit, which would have been fine except for I got a really late idle call. The LSO will typically yell idle about when you're about 6 inches off the ground. That way, everything compresses and you stop. Well, I was on brainstem and I had full power and I hit hard and jumped right back into the air again. So when he yells idle, I'm 15 feet in the air and increasing rapidly. So I went to idle and they're like, idle. And I went back and forth. I hit like 3 times. I wound up, I was starting to
log them all. Log all 3 landings.
I was leaning left each time. I wound up with full right aft stick, and I had decided I needed to eject. This is too late. I'm screwed. But I couldn't get my hands off the stick, and I hit the last time about 18 inches from the left scupper.
Oh boy!
And everything got quiet, and I was like, okay, I'm still here. Everything's fine. Nothing broke. I didn't hear any. You're done. Taxi over to the. I got a cut pass. It was.
Yeah.
Got a talking to from Gremlin.
Yeah. Well, you got that out of the way.
And now that's known as, anytime you have a humongous series of power bounces, that's known as SeaBass to land.
All right.
SBTL in the one.
A new LSS comment.
That's right.
Made up. Oh,
it'll come down in the middle SeaBass to land.
All right.
Nice.
Yeah. Yep. Well, which do you think? What should we close out with? Karma, Traffic Court, Hornet Kill, Vino in the break,
gun kill on FCF.
Yeah.
Oh, the FCF, that was probably pretty good. That was, when we went 223, when we went over to Iraq during the invasion, we left on the Kearsarge. It was that boat was awesome for day-to-day living. They had breakfast at 9 o'clock in the morning and a nice gym, and it was nice. But they didn't want to fly. They had 6 hours of fly day. They didn't want to fly. They were scared to death of everything. And so we never got to fly. So when we got to the Gulf, we actually cross-decked from the Kearsarge to the Bataan. So we moved all our planes and all our shit from one deck to the other, which is a giant pain in the ass. And once again, there was one jet that needed a functional check flight, and it was me that got to go do it. So we have the BRC, the base recovery course of the boats, pointing north, and the Bataan was off to the west. And so they said, okay, listen, I went and briefed with the CATSI guys, and I'm like, hey, listen, where should I go do this FCF that I can just, it was a C card. It was basically just, flaps and nozzles and stuff. So I go up and I said, well, just go to there's nothing at all east of the boat. Just stay east of the BRC and you're fine. There's nobody over there. All right, fine. So and if you've ever flown in the Persian Gulf, it's very hazy and milky a lot of times. You don't really see a lot. You can see straight up and straight down, but it's of dubious, lateral visibility. So
right.
I go over to the east side where there's nobody at, because it's the Persian Gulf right before a war. It's not like there's anything going on. So I go over there as everyone else relocates to the Bataan. I'm knocking out my checks, and I was just about to do the departure resistant checks. I was doing a maneuver, and I see this Hornet fly out in front of me, and I was like, "Oh, cool! I'm going to gun the crap out of this guy." So I go to gun-ack, and I'm going to shoot him, but I'm just going to get some good pipper burns on his, on the
and you had HUD tape. Do you have HUD tape going?
Yeah. Oh,
so
yeah.
Show your buddies.
Exactly. And by the way, during this whole time, there was some screaming on guard every now and then that I deselected guard because it was irritating me. I probably shouldn't have, because they were yelling at me, it turns out. I was in the Marshall stack for a CV because I looked down as I've got this guy locked up and I'm about to get pipper footage. I'm like, you know what? This may not be the best idea. Those are actual missiles on the rail that he has. Plus, I don't know where his wingman is. I don't know what the hell's going on. This is probably not a great idea. So I look down and I see that, remember the BRC was north.
Yeah.
I look down and I see this giant wake that's going south. I'm like, oh, the boat turned around. Well, I was in the recovery stack for CV and attacked one of their guys who never saw me. And I'm just lucky I'm glad I didn't just crash into somebody. I just right through a holding stack all by myself.
Oh my gosh! And the guard screaming was to tell you to get the hell out of the stack.
Something along the lines of, "Hey, asshole, get the hell away from our ship."
CV. That's a large deck aircraft carrier with catapults and arresting gear, like the guys that can't
and radar
hover.
and air traffic control and
Yeah.
a floating city.
That's right. Oh,
You were in Class B airspace there, baby.
That is rich.
Well, that just goes to show you that the CATSI guys on a small deck, a big deck amphib, they think they own a lot of airspace, all the way to the moon. They have global situational awareness, and they oftentimes don't. And neither did I. So it was a good time.
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, just curious, how many hours in the Harrier did you end up with? Because it sounds like you flew
around 1,500 or so.
All right, excellent.
Nice.
We weren't getting them like you guys were back when
Yeah.
We were in my first gun squadron. We were probably getting about 5 to 10 a month.
Yeah.
And I was actually, since I flew a lot of FCFs, I probably got a little more than that. And then I got about half of them as a RAG instructor.
And we were pissing and moaning. We were getting 300 hours a year. Going, oh, this is terrible. This is nothing.
Yeah.
And I know guys got far less as the program went on.
I remember I got the most I had in the Harrier in 1 month was I think it was 45, and that was in Iraq on the second tour when we were ashore. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but that was 3 hours of planning, 2 hours of briefing, and a 4-hour vol, and then you come back another hour of debriefing. Then I got to do I got to stand duty and do my day job. And it was exhausting. It was one of the only times that, I remember I came back and they were like, "Hey, we got this plane. We need you to go do an FCF on it." And I'm like, "Oh man, is there nobody?" Normally you jump all over these FCFs because it's free flight time. But I was just like, there's no one else that, I'm going to go up and just get it done as quickly as possible and be done with it. Cause I'm exhausted, but that was then, this is now.
And now you're flying literally flying your ass off.
I am.
I know, right? Be careful what you ask for.
Right.
Well, thank you for all that. Well, I'll
appreciate
take
it.
So obviously you got to come back because there's a lot here undone, and we've been talking a long time already.
Yeah.
Cool.
Many good stories. Yeah. Thank you so much. Mostly thank you for your service and taking it to retirement. Thanks to your bride for the sacrifices that she put up with too, with the military families, make it all possible for those of us that actually served. And I can't express enough respect and gratitude for the military families as well as the members themselves. That's a big deal. So, geez, there's probably a couple other thank yous we ought to start getting out there. I think first of all, we want to thank a gent by the name of Dave Hamilton. Yeah,
Dave Hamilton.
He's over there at
Mac Geek Gab.
Mac Geek Gab is one of his shows. I'm
Gig
co-host
Gab?
on that. Geek Gab for musicians. Business
probably-
Brain.
Yeah, I knew there was another one we're missing.
Yeah. And that's all run. He has Backbeat Media online at backbeatmedia.com. They handle our advertising and advertising for many shows. If you have a show and you'd like to get advertising, reach out to backbeatmedia.com and see what kind of good stuff they can come up with for you. Now let's see. A couple other things. We got Dave Hamilton, Backbeat Media, Glossary. We're going to have some more glossary ads this week, I'm sure. So there I was.us/glossary. And if you don't see it, what should you do? If you got a question,
Send us an email at fig@sothereiwas.us, repeat at sothereiwas.us, or Sticks, if you really want a good answer, Sticks at sothereiwas.us, because he's the brains of the outfit.
absolutely. So, and if you want a cool shirt like I'm wearing, if you happen to be watching the video, if you're listening, trust me, I got a really cool shirt on. You want a cool hat like Fig's wearing?
It's way cool. It's a way cool shirt.
Yeah. Get over to the sothereiwas.us/merch. That'll get you. We got a lot of neat stuff. I have been chasing my tail for a couple weeks. I swear I'm going to get back there. I'll look about getting a warm winter hat on. I'll look about getting a hoodie. You know, as now that we're getting out of bikini season. But if you
How
want a
about
bikini,
a
you
furry
want to go south of the
bikini?
morning, do it.
A furry
Ooh, there you
bikini, you know, for cold weather.
There you go. Could possibly happen, but probably not on our merch store.
It ain't right. I'm sorry to bring that up. Let's just forget we said that.
Well, shh. All right. Hey, 2 new Patreon pilots this week. Thank you so much to Peter Simon and Patrick Miller for joining up and signing up as pilots on Patreon. Again, we realize everybody who's donating, supporting this show, we know that money didn't fall into your pockets and you've chosen to share it with us. And that's very humbling. We're grateful to you for that.
Peter Simon, call sign says.
There you go.
SEZ says.
Go. Yeah, Simon says. Got to come up with Patrick Miller. One for Patrick Miller. We'll think of one for you, sir. give us some time. All right.
I got one for Patrick Miller.
Oh, roll in there, man.
Yeah. Light.
Time.
Or light.
There you go. Yeah. Nicely done. All right. Hey, what is the number one thing somebody can do for us if they can't throw money in our pockets? And you don't have to. We appreciate when you do. You don't have to. But there's something you do have to do. Here's the price of listening to the show.
Well, first of all, share the show. Share the show.
Bingo.
That doesn't cost anything. Just share it.
No. Yeah. Make your friends suffer right along with you.
Well, you know, the feedback we get all the time is
super.
It's not necessarily from aviation background people. It's people that that aren't in aviation. They love these stories. So please share the show.
That's exactly it. A couple other quick thank yous. Brad Silcott over at bdsaviation.com provides us with some imagery that we use on the website. Sometimes I put it up behind me. When I'm in a place like today, I can't run a virtual background. It makes me look silly. Half my head disappears sometimes. And then, of course, those fine folks that make the Air Force sound good. Who was that, Fig?
That's the Dos Gringos. Dos Gringos.
Gotta love their music. Great music. You can find them at Amazon Music, Apple Music, Pandora, Spotify. Anywhere where you find music, you can find the Dos Gringos. Fun music. Enjoy it. So, I don't know. In the meantime, you got any advice for our listeners until next week, Fig?
Yeah, don't sit on the ejection seat handle.
Don't do it. That's kind of into the show. In the meantime, be like
Check
that
6.
Hornet in the pattern.
Yeah, check
The
6.
SeaBass was chasing.
You dumbass. Check 6.
Stay safe and check 6.
Crossing the pond, and you could see that I wasn't exactly fond of all the shit I was wearing on that day. Now an F-16 is cramped enough, but it's even worse with all that stuff supposed to save your life. But we knew there was no way. When you're going down the North Atlantic, man, it's over.
Oh, hold on. What did he say?
He said it's over.
Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?
No!
See ya. See ya.